In February 2008, Nintendo lost control of 101 million consoles without knowing it had happened. The thing that brought it all down wasn't a sophisticated attack, it was a Zelda save file on a $10 SD card. No chip, no soldering iron, no expertise, just a children's game about an elf and a horse. And the people who built it never wanted any of what came next. The year is 2006. Nintendo is losing. The GameCube had just been outsold by the PlayStation 2 by a factor of 6. Sony and Microsoft were in a horsepower war. Expensive hardware, expensive games, expensive everything. The industry expected Nintendo to join the race or disappear. Nintendo did neither. The Wii launched in November 2006 at $249. Its controller was a television remote you swung through the air. Its graphics looked like a faster GameCube, because underneath the white plastic, that is almost exactly what it was. Nintendo built the Wii on the bones of the GameCube to hit that price point. A smart business move, right up until it wasn't. Because the GameCube had a history, it had already been hacked. But the sales numbers arrived before the consequences did. In the first half of 2007, the Wii outsold the PS3 and Xbox 360 combined in the United States. By 2013, Nintendo had moved 101 million units. Nursing homes bought them. Hospitals used them in physical therapy. Grandmothers who never touched a game controller were bowling in their living rooms. The most hacked console of its generation had just become the most beloved piece of consumer hardware on Earth. What nobody knew yet was that Nintendo had buried a secret inside it, and someone was already looking. Here's what Nintendo never told you was inside the box. Packaged within the Wii's graphics chip, a block of silicone Nintendo called Hollywood, was a second, hidden processor, an ARM9 chip, small enough to sit inside the GPU package without raising the cost. Nintendo called it IOP internally. The hacking community, when they eventually found it, called it Starlet, a small star hiding inside Hollywood. Starlet was the security brain of the entire console. It woke up before anything else. When you pressed power, Starlet ran first, executing 3 bootloaders in sequence, each one cryptographically verified before handing control to the next. The first stage, Boot 0, was burned directly into read-only silicone, not write-protected, physically unchangeable. No firmware update could ever touch it. Above that, Starlet ran iOS, the Wii's software operating system. iOS controlled every piece of hardware: the disk drive, the SD slot, the USB ports, the wireless chip. The main game processor couldn't talk to any of them without going through iOS first, and iOS would only run software bearing Nintendo's RSA signature. On paper, airtight, a layered authentication chain built on a foundation that literally couldn't be modified. In practice, it had a fault line. If you want to see exactly how a small group of hobbyists tore that fault line open, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We break stories like this every week. Now, let's meet the team. They called themselves Team Twiizers. The name is the story. At the center was Ben Beyer, known online as Bushing, not the hacker of movie mythology. His colleagues described him as outspoken but never confrontational, sharp and kind in a scene that valued the first quality and rarely demonstrated the second. He'd previously helped crack the original iPhone as part of the iPhone dev team. He brought us together as a group and in spirit, Failoverflow would later write. Without him, we, as a team, would not exist. Alongside him was Hector Martin, a Spanish teenager who could look at a circuit board and understand it the way other people read books. Neither of them was trying to steal games. They were curious. The Wii had a hidden processor, an elaborate security architecture, and a secret Nintendo had buried inside a graphics chip. That was enough. What they found when they started pulling at the threads was that Nintendo made a mistake so simple it would have been embarrassing in a first-year university assignment. But to understand the mistake, you need to understand what they did first, and what they did first involved a pair of tweezers.
Here's the exploit that gave the team its name. When the Wii ran a GameCube game, it shifted into backward compatibility mode and used only the bottom 16 megabytes of its 64 megabytes of video RAM. Nintendo's engineers never bothered to clear the remaining 48 megabytes. Why? Because they assumed it was unreachable. The thought apparently never occurred to them that someone might try to reach it anyway. Team Twiizers ran homebrew code through the existing GameCube mod chip pathway. Then, armed with a standard $2 pair of metal tweezers, they reached into the live console, into the motherboard itself, and shorted the address lines. 2 tiny copper contact points, a pair of metal tips, and a steady hand. By physically bridging those contacts, they tricked the memory controller into sliding a window of protected RAM into a region their code could read. They did it repeatedly, window by window, methodically mapping memory Nintendo had assumed would stay invisible forever. In that uncleared 48 megabytes, Nintendo had left its iOS code sitting in open memory, and inside that code, the Wii's AES common key, the master encryption key for the entire console, extracted with $2 worth of metal. That's how they got their name, but getting the key was only the beginning. To actually run unsigned code, to make the Wii execute software Nintendo hadn't approved, they still needed to defeat RSA. And what they found when they looked at Nintendo's RSA implementation was almost insulting in its simplicity. Nintendo's signature verification used a standard code function called strun STMP to compare cryptographic hashes. Strun STMP is designed for text. It reads characters one at a time and stops the moment it hits 0, because in text, 0 means end of string. 8-SHA-1 hashes aren't text, they're binary data. They can contain zeros anywhere, naturally, as part of normal output. Think of it like a security guard checking a 20-digit passcode. Instead of reading the whole card, Nintendo's guard was programmed to stop reading the moment he saw a 0. If the hacker's card and the official card both just happened to start with a 0, the guard smiled and waved them through. That's Nintendo's multi-million-dollar cryptographic system. All Team Twiizers had to do was keep modifying a piece of code until its hash started with 0. On a standard laptop, that took seconds. The bug was present in Boot 1, in Boot 2, in iOS, everywhere. They called it the Trucha bug. Anyone could now fake sign any software as official Nintendo content. 2 walls down. All they needed now was a way to deliver it into an ordinary, unmodified console sitting in someone's living room. The answer was hiding in a horse's name, and Nintendo had written it into one of their most beloved games. In Zelda, Twilight Princess, Link's horse is named Epona. The game stores her name in the save file. When it reads the name back to display on screen, there's no length check, no boundary. It copies however many characters it finds directly into a fixed-size memory buffer. This is a buffer overflow, a textbook, first week of class, taught as a warning buffer overflow, the kind of mistake security courses use as a cautionary example of exactly what not to do. Team Twiizers crafted a save file where Epona's name was hundreds of characters long, with a small program buried inside those characters. When the game loaded the save and tried to copy the name into memory, the overflow spilled past the buffer, overwrote the execution pointer, and redirected the console into the injected code. The injected code loaded a program from the SD card. In February 2008, Team Twiizers released the Twilight Hack. Any Wii owner with a Zelda disc and a $10 SD card could now run unsigned code on their unmodified hardware. No soldering, no chips, no technical knowledge required. 3 months later, they released the Homebrew channel, permanent, polished, installed directly into the Wii system menu, alongside the Weather channel and the Me channel. Designed to look like something Nintendo might have shipped themselves. Because Bushing and Marcan weren't trying to destroy the platform, they were trying to prove that the hardware people paid for could be more than what Nintendo had decided it should be. Nintendo saw it differently, and what Nintendo did next would reveal exactly what kind of company they were when their control was threatened. On June 16, 2008, Nintendo pushed System Menu 3.3, designed to automatically detect and delete Twilight Hack save files, their first public move to close the door. Marcan disassembled the update within hours and found something remarkable. Nintendo's detection code read the file's aligned length instead of its actual length. For any save file whose byte count wasn't a multiple of 32, the check returned no hack found, without scanning for anything. It was a patch that couldn't detect what it was looking for because Nintendo's own detection code was broken. The new version of the Twilight Hack was out the same day. Later that year, Bushing and Marcan stood on a stage in Berlin at the 25th Chaos Communication Congress. Their talk was called Console Hacking 2008, We Fail. It was methodical, public, and damning, and in one slide, almost as a footnote, they noted what had happened when they'd tried to responsibly report the vulnerabilities they'd found. Tried to inform Nintendo about this. They responded by harassing us. Nintendo had been told. Nintendo chose harassment. And the people who'd been harassed were about to watch something they couldn't stop and hadn't asked for. Here's where the story changes. The threat Nintendo had spent 2 years fighting, Team Twiizers, the homebrew channel, the Twilight Hack, wasn't the real threat. The real threat had a different name. His handle was Wan Coco, not a Team Twiizers member, not interested in their philosophy. Using their published reverse engineering work, Wan Coco built CIOS, a custom version of the Wii's operating system. Someone else used CIOS to build USB Loader, software that could run complete copies of game disks from a USB hard drive. What Team Twiizers had built as a research tool, USB Loader turned into a point-and-click piracy machine. The floodgates didn't just open, they tore off the hinges. In June 2009, Nintendo monitored 10 piracy websites and counted 238 million downloads in a single month. The company claimed $10.7 billion in projected losses. Nintendo's handheld and console software sales in Europe fell by nearly 50%. Super Mario Galaxy 2 became the most pirated Wii game for multiple consecutive years. Team Twiizers said publicly and repeatedly they'd never supported piracy, never directly enabled it. It didn't matter. The door they'd built for curiosity was being used as a warehouse entrance. And Nintendo's response to this would be the most revealing thing they did in the entire story. Nintendo's answer arrived in September 2009, System Menu 4.2. The community called it the Homebrew Killer. It patched every iOS, killed the Trucha bug system-wide, and it attempted to reflash the Wii's Boot2 bootloader using code that hadn't been adequately tested across all hardware revisions. It bricked an unknown number of Wiis, not hacked consoles, not modified systems, factory default, completely stock machines that had simply accepted an official Nintendo firmware update, bricked by the company that manufactured them. Consider the scale of that backfire. If you were a loyal customer who followed every rule, Nintendo's official update turned your console into an expensive plastic rectangle. If you were a hacker who'd installed Team Twiizers custom software, your console was completely safe. Because Team Twiizers had already anticipated this. They'd built BootMe, installed below iOS, below everything, that created a full NAND backup before anything else ran. A bricked Wii with BootMe installed could be fully restored in minutes. The company that destroyed its own customers' hardware had no recovery tool. The hackers did. Every patch Nintendo issued, the community bypassed. 3.3 bypassed same day. 4.0 finally killed the Twilight Hack for good and was met immediately with Banner Bomb, an exploit in the system menu's banner graphics, requiring no game disc at all. Nintendo patched Banner Bomb twice. The community documented this dryly.
Once to show why you test all your code paths, and once to show that Nintendo takes too long to fix its own bugs. 4.3 killed Banner Bomb. In August 2011, Team Twiizers released Letter Bomb. It exploited the Wii's built-in message board, not the disk reader, not the SD menu, the messaging system that came pre-installed on every Wii ever manufactured. You generated a file on a website, put it on an SD card, inserted the card, and switched on the console. The Wii checked its messages. The message was an exploit. No game, no chip, no technical knowledge, no barrier of any kind. After 5 years of patches and lawsuits and bricked consoles, every Wii on Earth was wide open. The door didn't just stop existing. It had never been a door. It had always been a window. In 2025, Marquand published a reflection on those years. He wrote, "I ended up burning out, primarily due to the very large fraction of entitled users. Most people using our software just wanted to play pirated games, something we didn't support, condone, or directly enable. We kept playing a cat and mouse game with the manufacturer to keep the platform open, only to see our efforts primarily used by people who just wanted to steal other people's work and very loudly felt entitled to it. It got really old after a while." He left. First to Linux on the PlayStation 4, then to Asahi Linux, porting the operating system to Apple's M1 chips. Work with no firmware wars, no entitled users, no Nintendo. Bushing didn't get the chance. On February 8, 2016, Ben Beyer died of a heart attack. He was 35. The man who first demonstrated homebrew on a Wii at a Berlin hacker conference in December 2007. The one his colleagues called the person who held them together. Gone at 35. Failoverflow published 4 words. Keep hacking. It's what Bushing would have wanted. In 2023, the Dolphin emulator announced it would launch on Steam. Dolphin lets you play GameCube and Wii games on a PC, and if you've ever used it, you've benefited directly from what Team Twiizers figured out in those late-night sessions with a circuit board and a pair of tweezers. Nintendo moved to block the launch. The legal argument centered on a single cryptographic key embedded in Dolphin's source code, the Wii AES common key, the same one extracted from 48 megabytes of uncleared video RAM by physically bridging address lines with $2 worth of metal in 2007. 16 years later, same key, still in courtrooms. Nintendo blocked the Steam release. The emulator is freely available elsewhere. The legal question is unresolved, and the key is still embedded, still doing exactly what it's been doing since the night someone held a pair of tweezers to a Wii motherboard and decided that curiosity was worth the risk. Here's what Nintendo never understood. Their engineers weren't careless. Starlet and the 3-stage boot chain and the RSA architecture were serious engineering, built by serious people. The Wii wasn't broken by negligence. It was broken by a philosophy. Nintendo believed that security meant keeping users away from their own hardware. They buried Starlet inside a GPU because they thought obscurity was protection. They used a text comparison function to verify binary cryptographic hashes because nobody pushed hard enough on the edge cases. And when the people who found all of it tried to report it responsibly, they responded with lawyers and harassment because they'd decided that curiosity was the same thing as a threat. What Team Twiizers built was built out of genuine love for the machine, the love that makes someone spend nights with metal tweezers on a live motherboard to understand something that wasn't supposed to be understood. The love that makes someone build a safety net for users a corporation was too reckless to protect itself. That love didn't survive what happened to it. 101 million Wiis, 1 Zelda save file, $2 worth of metal, and a community that cared about a machine more than the company that made it, until caring stopped being enough. If this one hit different, subscribe, drop a like, and tell me in the comments which chapter you want next. Every source is in the description.